Previously on the Friendly Men.
Like literally, it looks like dirty water, and it's almost like just a broth, you know. Everybody takes a spoonful, and I look up and I see Johnny's face, and he goes, "Waves Monty over. Ask them if they can make a hamburger."
You are now watching episode 3 of the Friendly Men with CJ Ramone.
You've been playing with one of my favorite bands of all time, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
All right.
And you've been playing with one of my friends, Stacy D.
All right.
And so, like, how is that working for you? Like, is that just so fun? It sounds like the funnest time ever.
I gotta say, after playing with the Ramones and then going out on my own, like going out on my own was really tough because it was a huge change in crowd sizes and, you know, scaled way down and everything. Playing with my own band, you know, I'm pretty much carrying the football all the time, you know. So after 2019, when I said, hey, I'm not going to be doing any more touring, and then Gimme stepped up, it's so nice to go back to just playing bass, like just strictly playing bass, singing backups here and there and everything. But
to wear nice clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look good dressed. I clean up nice.
You clean up very nice, CJ.
But I really do appreciate playing with Stacy, you know what I mean? And all the rest of the guys too. Like I played with some seriously talented musicians, you know? It's kind of cool to do something different after all these years. To still be playing under the name CJ Ramone, but not, you know, necessarily doing the Ramone thing. It really feels good. It's kind of liberating. I'm having a really good time doing it. You know, Fat was putting out my solo records, but of course, you know, the Gimmes are a part of Fat's legacy too, so I'm still in the same family there.
I saw a thing that you were talking about some of your favorite bands, and they were all from Fat. The Mean Jeans, Teenage Bottle Rocket, like you love Fat bands.
I do. You know, the beautiful thing about it, for being an East Coast for my, you know, for my almost my entire adult life, to be from the East Coast and then come out here and be welcomed by, you know, everybody out here, you know, get treated, you know, with respect by everybody out here, really means a lot to me. Like for all these bands over at Fat to kind of, you know, be as cool as they are with me and the Gimmes to take me in and everything. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Why would they not? They could have fucking Ramones.
Yeah, I know.
Come on, dude.
I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but the scene out here on the West Coast is like, there's so many good bands. There's so many good musicians. You know what I mean? It's easy. I could totally see why people would be like, hey, you ain't from here. You ain't one of us. You know what I mean? I was totally ready for that whole attitude, and that just never came. I never got that from anybody.
You were the best band that ever existed. like, show me your business card.
Anthony, listen, I got to tell you. I was the same way before I played with the Ramones. That's exactly how I thought. You know, to me, the Ramones, nobody did what they did before them, and nobody did what they did after them. You know what I mean? I love them to the core. I love them, you know, and especially Dee Dee. I was a total Dee Dee guy. You know what I mean?
So tell me about the process of the Holy Spell. Like, what was that process going through you?
My writing process got pretty interesting there at the end. Like, I would just lock myself. I locked myself in a room with a pot of coffee and a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I would just stay up and just pound out songs, like literally just pound them out. You know, lyrics, I always kind of pick up a little bit along the way, little phrases that I hear or little ideas I get, I write them down. And then when I sit down to do a record, that's kind of like my little nugget of gold of where I start out from. Well, my first record, post Ramones, as CJ Ramone, was called Reconquista, right? So that record, I had been away from music for a long time. I had songs stacked up for that record. And then the next one was Last Chance to Dance, which, you know, I still had some songs laying around, and then I wrote some while I was out on the road for Reconquista. But when I did American Beauty was the first record where I kind of did that. This is back when I was in New York, and I locked myself in my basement and pot of coffee, bottle of Jack Daniels, just sat down there and pounded out songs. I was having trouble with lyrics, so I flipped open the laptop and pulled out an old Hammer film called Dracula AD 1972, and one of my favorite actresses of all time, Carolyn Monroe, was in that. And I wrote some lyrics, and it became Girlfriend in a Graveyard. That was the first record where I did that. And then the next one, of course, brings us up to The Holy Spell, my last record. And here in my house out here in California, got a big California walk-in closet, right? So I just locked myself in there with some coffee and Jack Daniels, and just wrote a bunch of riffs and pulled out my little collection of things that I had written down over the course of the last few months and busted out a record. But the interesting thing about The Holy Spell was when I went down south to record it at Buzz Bomb Studios with my buddy Paul Miner, and I actually locked myself in that studio for 21 days straight, slept on the couch in the control room and busted that record out. I did it like the old school way, but it was a lot of fun. And if that turns out to be the last record I record, I'm really happy with it. I couldn't have put out a better record than that. I mean, not just for playability and the songwriting, but lyrically, I really felt like on that record, I really liked the lyrics I put out on that one.
CJ, I'm noticing a theme with you. It's pot of coffee and Jack Daniels to write an album.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the caffeine and the alcohol, the combination of the two, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I'm sure for big rock stars, like you always hear the stories about, they flew to Jamaica and they rented a house up in the hills and they smoked tons of weed and they wrote a record, they recorded a record, they were there for a whole year, blah, blah, blah. You always hear about guys getting away from stuff, right? But when you're a working class musician like me, right, I consider myself like working class musician. Like, if I ain't out on the road touring, making money, I can't be sitting around, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a working class musician, so that's my version of getting away, running away somewhere to write a record, is a pot of coffee and a bottle of Jack Daniels in a locked room. It does help to kind of like block out the everyday stuff and just sit down and really get focused. I really enjoyed it. And all my songs, all my records, except Steve Soto wrote one of the songs on Last Chance to Dance called I think he wrote Won't Stop Swinging. He wrote the music for that one. Yeah, but all my lyrics, most of my music, I've written it all on my own.
I saw you do a lot of things for autism awareness. That's pretty cool, and thank you. Can you explain what you do to help and how other people can help?
I partnered with Autism Speaks for years. I used to do their walk on Long Island all the time. I actually advocated for other parents and for other kids besides my own son, Liam, who is autistic. I really tried my best to be as vocal about it as I possibly could. Like, before there was, social media, I really tried to be as vocal as I could in interviews, and I really tried to speak up about it a lot, because there were a lot of other people who had a public platform who had autistic children and never really said anything about it, which of course that's an individual choice. But I felt like the way I could best help was to be vocal about it and to, put my experience with my autistic child out into the public, and just give people some of the information that I came across. Because when my boy was diagnosed, right, my boy is diagnosed in like 99, I think. Yeah, so he's 97, 98. So he's diagnosed probably early 1999, right? So you did not have the resources there are now. Things weren't as organized as they are now. You didn't have all these big organizations that were, looking for causes and providing respite programs, and, there just wasn't all the stuff around. So I just tried to be as vocal as I could. But I also try to lead by example by advocating strongly for my son, whether it was the school district, whether it was, his job, or no matter what. I always advocate for my son to the absolute best of my ability. And that's kind of, what I try to put out there to other parents is just, hey, it's really on you. No one will work for your child the way that you would. And it's scary, and it's hard to to kind of navigate all the different governmental organizations you got to deal with and everything. But basically, your child is going to get what you get for them in the beginning. My son now works full-time job, has his own apartment, lives his own life, does his own thing,
Excellent.
Gets around on his own, comes over on the weekend and comes and hangs out, but that's with a lot of years of myself and my wife and and a lot of other people getting him to where he is. But that's what I tell everybody, like your child will have the life that you make for them for the most part, so, and that's really what it comes out to. I mean, now I know it's a lot easier now. It's a little more simple. I shouldn't say it's more simple, but you have a lot more resources now that you didn't have back then, and people who have experience, more experience than I do, that you can go to for help, and that can help you with services and stuff like that. But it's a pretty interesting experience to I always, my wife and I over the years, I always said, if I remove like the emotional thing, like if it's not my son, and I look at the whole situation and the way everything went down, man, it is interesting to like all the changes my son went through from where he was when he was first diagnosed to where he is now. It's just a really interesting journey. And yeah, I'm proud as hell of him. He's out there doing it on his own now. So
now,
yep.
I've heard stories about Joey's tics, like going back to the airport, touching things, stuff like that. What was your first experience with his mental illness?
And hold on, I want to add something to that question.
Go.
Did that help you when it came to your son being diagnosed with autism because you worked with Joey?
That's an interesting thing. Okay, so I'm going to answer the first part of the question first. So here you go. So I noticed Joey doing little things, going into hotels or stepping in and out of doorways. I noticed that. The first thing that ever happened that made me realize like just how hard his life was. When I first got into the band, I used to always get a room like close to the rest of the guys. But after the first couple of months, like I used to rage and party and just have crazy rager parties in my room. Monty started putting me on like a different floor, other end of the floor. But before that happened, there was one night, it was after the show. I was in my room, no TV on, lights out. I was in my room. I think I was smoking. I was probably like laying in bed smoking. And I kept hearing this clicking noise. Click, 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 click. And I was like, what the fuck is that? So I got up and I'm looking around in my room, like trying to figure out what it is. I realized it was coming from the room next door. So I was like, what the fuck? It was my bathroom and Joey's bathroom must have been like right next to each other. He was turning the light on and off. He was like, I laid down to try to go to sleep. It was like an hour and a half later and it was still going on. I literally got up. I was about to go and knock on his door. I open my door and I see him like tiptoeing past my room down the hall in his underwear. So I just quietly shut my door. And then that was the first time I realized like, okay, yeah, there's and what that ties into was like, Joe used to really struggle with his voice a lot. It was because a lot of times he couldn't go to sleep. People with obsessive compulsive, like this is stuff I learned after researching a little bit, after understanding that Joey had it and all that. Like, so people with obsessive compulsiveness sometimes have a number and they have to do a certain thing a certain number of times. And if they lose count, they have to go back to the beginning and start again. So I think Joey must have had a really fucking high number. You know, there were times when he would say, Monty, I got to go to the doctor. and Monty would take him to like a certain sidewalk, a certain crack in a certain sidewalk, and Monty would have to sit in the van while Joey stepped back and forth across it. He really suffered, like really suffered. It must have been such a fucking hard thing to be like famous and everybody watching you, and then having that like constantly in the back of your mind. I gotta say, like, for a guy who had the problems that Joey had, he was the front man and one of the greatest front bands of all time. So as much as he suffered and as hard as it must have been, like, he literally lived his dream for his entire life. He lived his dream. So it would be easy to, you know, look at Joey as like, oh, poor Joey. Oh, he had all these problems, blah, blah. But I can't, like, having been friends with him and knowing him, I can't pity him. I can't feel bad for him because he did not let it define him, and he did not let it stop him from doing what he loved to do. And that's the fucking beautiful, really cool thing about Joey's life is despite all of his problems, he fronted a fucking band. You know what I mean? That is like, to me, that's the part of his story that is the most important. But you have
totally agree.
To know the other stuff too, to understand what a special guy he really was.
He's uniquely special.
Yeah, so this experience helped you with the awareness for autism and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. You know, one thing I have to say, like, it definitely made me way more accepting people who have issues that are, you know, that make them different.
Yeah.
It definitely made me way more, and I think it really also helped me to not be secretive about what was going on with my son, because I saw most of Joey's struggle, not the fear or paranoia, but, you know, the concern that somebody was gonna see him doing it, or somebody would notice, or somebody would say something, you know what I mean? And I realized, like, there's no shame. You know, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just a miswiring in your brain. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you less of a person, or it doesn't make you less. You know what I mean? It just makes you different. That's all. But the same.
Very last show.
Yeah.
You know, was it 1996 or 1994? I'm sorry. Of the Adios Amigos. Eddie Vedder did the last song with you, and as I'm led to believe, he, you know, followed you on the tour the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, was that cool for you that Eddie Vedder sang the last Ramone song?
Yeah, you know, to tell you the truth, I didn't dig the whole last show thing, like with all the special guests and all. Kind of not a really anticlimactic almost, you know?
Yeah, okay. I'm glad that you agree with me on that.
Yeah. No, brother, if you're a fan, like I'm a fan, like most fans felt the same way. Like, hey, it's really cool that all those guys were, you know, on the show. But
fucking Ramones, like.
Yeah, but I really feel like it was just like a cheap ploy to sell videos. You know, they put together like the video package and stuff. And man, we could have done that in 2 years and really cashed in on it instead of making it our last show where, you know, it's like ticket prices are the same as they always are, you know?
It wasn't as special. It wasn't special.
Yeah.
It wasn't as intimate as it should.
You know what would have been really cool would have been if, like, and this is what when Johnny first came to me and told me that we got offered Lollapalooza, I told Johnny I'm not doing it. I said, hey, look, John, because I had told him I got into a bad bike wreck in '92, and so I started building a bike. So I told John, I said, listen, summer '96, don't book nothing because I'm doing a cross-country motorcycle trip. I'm going out on the road for a year, so I'm not going to be around. And he told me, don't worry, we'll be retired by then, right? So winter of '95, we're doing our little, you know, petering out tour in the same shitty little clubs. And Johnny comes to me and he's like, hey, CJ, listen, I got to talk to you. You know, we got offered Lollapalooza for next summer. And it's like, John, I gave you 4 years notice, man. I told you summer '96, I'm not going to be around. I was like, you know what? The best thing you could do is you guys should get together with Tommy and Dee Dee and rehearse and do the final tour as the original lineup. It'll be a poetic end to a really fucking awkward career. You know, I was like, that would be a really good end to your career. And Johnny, like, in his just like no nonsense kind of style, just was like, CJ, take your time and think about it. You want to see those guys because you're an old fan. The new fans want to see you and Mark. So, you know, after a while, I thought about it. I was like, they deserve a bigger send-off than doing this crappy little club tour that we're doing, you know? So I figured, so I said to John, John, I'll tell you what, I'll do the tour, but I'm doing it on my motorcycle. I don't want to hear nothing about interviews or schedules and nothing else. I come and go as I please, and I'll do the tour. And he was like, okay, that's fine, you know? Like the last show, it would have been cool for them to get together with Tommy and Dee Dee. Like, if they wanted to do something special, that would have been, like, so, you know what I mean? And especially Dee Dee was there that night, and Dee Dee actually tried to get back in the band in, like, 94, I think. He went to Johnny and was like, hey, I want to come back. And Johnny was like, you know, Dee Dee, you're too late. CJ's in the band, you know, the kids love him and blah, blah, and this and that. So it's not like, you know, they would have had to talk Dee Dee into it. Tommy, I don't know. Tommy might have been a little bit different because Tommy hadn't played drums in a long time. But I really thought that would be like such a cool end to their career, as if they got the original band together and got up there and did like the same set they did from It's Alive. You know what I mean? Boom, the Ramones go out on an unbelievable high note. And, you know, I thought that was great. And then, you know, I told him, I said, you know, when I told him about doing that on Lollapalooza, I said, you know, so I'll be going cross country. So you tell me, like, hey, meet us in, you know, in Buffalo on July 2nd. You know what I mean? I jump up on stage, I do a song with them or something. I was like, that'd be cool too. But, you know, I really felt like they should have got the original band back together for the last tour. I just thought that would have been so damn cool.
What do you got going on, CJ? What do you got?
I'm doing is the Gimmies. Gimmies will be on tour this year. New Zealand, Australia, European tour, US tour. This year we're going to be busy.
If you play Chicago, put me on the guest list.
You got it, brother. Anytime.
What was the pre-show ritual? Because like in the famous Raw video, you guys are singing Creep.
So we used to get together, me, John, and Mark. We played through a couple of songs every night. I don't think we ever missed a night. Oh, I think one night we showed up to a show really late. We got there and we got to the show really, really late, and I think we might have missed it. But I think in the 7 years I was with them, I think every show besides that one, we always played at least 3 songs before we went on stage, just to kind of get everybody in the right state of mind.
Dude, it's been great. It's been wonderful. We love what you do. You know, Holy Spell, American Beauty, the solo stuff, Bad Chopper, all that stuff is really good.
I want to say one thing to CJ. This has been a complete honor to me. Thank you so much for your time. I know there's not a lot of Ramones left.
Yeah.
This is a true honor to me.
I will agree with Anthony on this. This has been an absolute honor. We've interviewed some wild guests before, but you have given us the wildest stories, and thank you for being super candid with us.
CJ, thanks a lot, and congratulations for the inductee of the Friendly Men Grammy Hall of Fame. All right, whatever they call it. So, all right.
Ever, you know, across any continent, it's an honor to talk to you. When I was in the 5th grade, my dad played me Ramones Mania, and it changed my life. He was trying to get me into Rush 2112.
Together, watch that live, the induction of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We never watched it before. We have never watched it, but we heard you guys were going to be on it, so we watched it specifically. And the first thing I said to my brother was, "Where is CJ? Where is CJ?" And we felt like you got a little bit gypped out of that because Ben and I watched that live. We watched it live in our living room. Yeah. So because we know you went forward and you're like, fuck it, it's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It doesn't mean anything. Well, CJ, we're gonna give you the Friendly Men Hall of Fame right here on the Friendly Men Show. So yeah.
Oh, I would like to
clap. That means a lot more to me than the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. Does James even have a trophy?
Ben's gonna send him a Def 1 record, okay?
Yeah, I'll send him a Def 1 record.
Contribution to the Ramones. You know who told me what my contribution to the Ramones was? Johnny, Joey, Arturo Vega, Danny Fields,
Monty Melnick.
Monty.
Yeah.
Those people that told me what my contribution was. I don't need a bunch. They knew how important the Ramones were, and they stayed together. You know what I mean?
And you said it. You said, how does a band last 22 years? I'd like to add to a little of that. How does a band last 22 years when they're not even the most proficient musicians on their equipment?
Yep, because
Wrap it up.
All right, well, guys, this will hopefully not be the last of CJ. So everybody, have a good night. CJ, take care of the family. Anthony, take care of yourself. CJ, thanks a lot, and congratulations for the inductee of the Friendly Men Grammy Hall of Fame, whatever they call it. So, all right, CJ, have a good night and take care of yourself. All right.
all right, guys.
Mashed potatoes are great.